I'm so excited. Here's Alex Ortner. Thank you guys for joining. I am trying to do a couple things right now. We're trying to record this and also do our live this way. I know that you guys have sent in a bunch of questions. Today we have Alex Ortner. I'm going to try again with my ear. I think I disconnected Bluetooth. Okay, so Alex Ortner is an amazing human. He's a speaker, he's an author, he's an entrepreneur, and he is the chief marketing officer and co-owner with his brother and sister of the Tapping Solution. So what's really amazing is that tapping, and he'll go into it, it stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. What tapping is, it's something that you can do with your hands. You don't need to buy anything. It's just a technique that Alex will walk us through, and he can teach you how to tap certain parts of your body that will kind of help reduce, stress, anxiety, those fight and flight type of feelings that you get when you're undergoing stress. And right now, there's so much going on. There's been so much going on over the last several months now. And I'm going to wave to some people. I know that people have a tendency to kind of join after we've been rolling for a few minutes. And so this has been really beautiful, and I'm so grateful to Alex for just joining us today and sharing some tools. And also, he's going to share some background into, who he is, how he got started with this, what the Tapping Solution is, and then he's going to share with us some tools. So, we'll give a couple more minutes for people to kind of dive in, and I'll actually read something that's a description of the Tapping Solution that he was written up in several media pieces. So the Tapping Solution is EFT, right, which is this natural healing technique that's described as psychological acupressure that helps to alleviate emotional, mental, and physical issues. So that's why this is such a profoundly simple but accessible tool for all of us to use right now. And because we do have viewers from everywhere across the globe, this is something that I'm so happy that I get a chance to share with you guys today. So, Alex, thank you again for joining me. You're amazing for making the time. And I would love for you to just share with everybody a little bit background on you and on Tapping Solution. Obviously, you got it started, and just, what tapping is.
Yep. Awesome. First off, thank you for having me here. I'm honored to be here. I'm honored to share tapping with you and your community, and to share, especially during this time right now, because it's tough for a number of different reasons, from COVID going on this year, from what's going on right now with all the racial anxiety that we're feeling, not only in the U.S. but around the world. It's just a time when people are really feeling a lot of stress and anxiety. Yeah. And so I'm really grateful to be able to introduce this technique of tapping to so many people, because we need it right now, because there's just, we normally are under a great deal of stress and anxiety and overwhelm. And this year has felt like it's like on overdrive, and there's so much uncertainty and not knowing of what to do. So sure. I'm really grateful to be here with you today. So there's lots of ways we can go into this. So you want me to share a little bit about my story here with how my family?
Absolutely. Yes, right. I want you to share, because I think it's very inspiring. And and I also work with my sister, so I love the family dynamics. Yeah. And I think there's inspiration from your story on multiple levels, not just what you've now offered the world, but just how you guys got started. So yes, please.
Yeah, so our business started, first off, I've always been very close-knit with my brother and my sister and my family. I've been really lucky that we grew up together. I think part of it was the fact that we moved countries. I was born in Argentina. Wow. I came here when I was 4 years old, and we, our whole family went across the world and settled without any family around anywhere here in Connecticut in the U.S. at a very young age. So we've always been very close. And we worked together in a real estate business before we got into this tapping stuff. But the way that my brother came about tapping, and he's the one who really discovered tapping. He didn't invent tapping, but the way he discovered it was, like so many different people now and back then, 15 years ago when he came across it, was that he was dealing with a challenge. He was dealing with a health challenge with his skin. He was dealing with allergy issues, which is something that all of us have dealt with in our family for one reason or another. And he was looking for solutions online. I think that's what so many of us do. We are having some type of challenge and we go online to try to find solutions. And he came across tapping and he was like, what is this thing, this weird thing where we're tapping on our face? How does this work? But he kept reading story after story after story of how it was being passed along. And when he tried it, he felt just an emotional release, which is something that I can never really explain to somebody until they experience it for themselves, which is why I love doing tapping. I don't like to just talk about tapping. I like to give an experience of tapping, because when you feel that cathartic release that we have, like when you have a good cry or something and you just feel that release, it really feels incredible to be able to release and to feel better. And so my brother found it for himself, for his health issues. And at that time said, hey, you know what? I want to try to make this more mainstream, and decided to make a documentary film about tapping, which is called The Tapping Solution, where he documented 10 different people going through a 3-day weekend using this tapping technique. And they came for all sorts of reasons, from physical pain to grief, for somebody who had lost his wife in a car accident recently, a whole bunch of different reasons. And it was really magical to see the transformation over those 3 days, mixed in with experts like Jack Canfield and Bob Proctor and Joe Mercola and all these people. And he kind of just decided to make this documentary film. And then from there, it kind of took off. And we've always been passionate about helping people to use this technique known as tapping to transform their life. And for a long time, tapping was really just being passed around because it worked, right? It was a weird thing. There wasn't science or research behind it, but people kept getting amazing results, and they'd tell somebody else and they'd try it. But really in the last 5 years or so, we have, along with other people, invested a lot of time and money into research to find out, well, why is this technique working, right? Because although I'm somebody who I'm like, hey, if you tell me it works, I'll try it and then I'll believe it. I don't need to know the why. I know that a lot of our culture, they want to know the why. What is the science? What is the research? And over the last 5 years, the science and research around it has really been astounding. I mean, far greater than I ever thought it would have been, where there are hundreds and hundreds of studies on all sorts of different topics in terms of how it affects our body, with our health, about how it affects our mind, how our brain functions differently. And we can talk about some of those studies today. But that's kind of how we got into the tapping. And we've really been on a mission for almost 15 years now to help people with this tapping technique to transform their life on an everyday basis.
Wow, I love it. And so grateful that you guys have done this. I love your backstory. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I can feel, and we're on Zoom and live, and I can feel your passion about it. So thank you so much for that. So let's talk a little bit about, about tapping. Like, what is it exactly? You kind of gave us the backstory of what it is, the science, but what are we doing,
what are we doing
when we're tapping?
Right, sure, yeah. Why don't I can explain a little bit about what tapping is, and we can talk about some of the science and research specifically, because it's interesting to find out, well, what is it actually doing to the brain and the body? So what tapping is, and as I explain this, you'll think it's just as weird as I thought 15 years ago when my brother taught it to me, and just as weird as I think about it right now when I think, really, how does this work, right? So tapping, literally, it's not tap dancing. I mean, tap dancing is great, but it's not tap dancing. It's literally tapping on different points of the body, and for specific reasons, not just any points, but these specific energy meridians of the body. And we like to call tapping a combination between ancient Chinese acupressure or acupuncture and modern psychology, because we tap on these certain points while saying certain statements that really allow us to tune into what we're feeling, so we can bring it to the surface and then release what we're feeling, and not only change the way we're experiencing life in this moment, but also rewire our brain and our conditioning to react to things differently in the future. So we can actually rewire the brain of what we're doing. So it literally involves tapping on parts of the body like this, and we go through a certain process that we do. And we always start off on the karate chop point. We call this the side of the hand or the karate chop point. And what we do when we tap here is we do what's called the setup statement. And the whole point of the setup statement is to really tune into, well, what is the issue that we're feeling? It's to acknowledge what we're feeling, because a lot of times it's our inability to acknowledge what we're feeling that actually keeps us stuck, right? If you've ever had the experience where you're upset, you don't know why, and maybe you're fighting with your spouse or with a family member, and they're like, what's
Mm-hmm.
wrong? You're like, I don't know. And then finally, when you figure out what it is and you
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it, you feel better just in that process of figuring out what you were feeling in the first place. So there's a lot of
100%.
power in doing that. And that's why when we tap on the karate chop point, we're actually tuning into that and acknowledging what we're feeling. And so the way that setup statement goes is it goes, even though, and then we fill in the blank, right? So if you're feeling stress and anxiety, which is probably the most common reason people do tapping, you might say, even though I'm feeling all this stress and anxiety, and then the rest of the statement, the original statement was, I love and accept myself anyway. Now, we do change that at times because I love saying I love and accept myself anyway, but depending on your background and what's going on for you, you might not be able to say that about yourself. You know,
Right.
if you don't
And
have the
I love that you, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I really want to just acknowledge that you said that, because it is hard in a lot of moments. And so, and I love that you're offering something different to say.
I'll give the experience of, myself and my wife grew up with very different backgrounds. I grew up very fortunate with a very strong family. I didn't come from a lot. Like I said, we were an immigrant family from Argentina and grew up, working our way up the ladder to being more successful now as an adult. But I grew up with a lot of love in my family and a lot of feeling of safety and of being enough and all those kinds of things. So it's easier for me to say I love and accept myself. Whereas my wife grew up in a totally different environment, an environment with a lot of fear, with fear of her parents, of people around her. She actually does tapping on sexual trauma because that's where her background comes from. And so for her, that language, especially early on, did not feel right. It wasn't easy to say, I love and accept myself, because she grew up like so many people with a tough childhood, hating themselves, thinking they're never enough, thinking they're not smart enough or good looking enough or just enough in any way. So we can say that statement of I love and accept myself anyway, or we can just say something like, even though I'm feeling all this anxiety, I acknowledge what I'm feeling right now. Or I acknowledge and accept what I'm feeling in this moment. So just acknowledging what we're feeling in that setup statement. And we also do choices at times as well. So we might at first say, I acknowledge and accept what I'm feeling. And then we might say, I choose to relax. So we also make choices in that setup statement as well, which is really powerful as well. So then we tap on the karate chop point, and we do that statement of, even though I'm feeling all this stress and anxiety, I acknowledge and accept what I'm feeling, right? And then we'll do a proper round as well. And then after we do the setup statement 3 times, we go through the different points on the body. And the different points are the eyebrow point, which you can do on one side, on both sides. You can pick how you do it. And then the next one is on the side of the eye. And then the next one is under the eye. The next one is under the nose. Then on the chin point.
Can I interrupt? Does it matter if it's your right hand or your left hand?
It does not matter which hand you do. I will say, so this question has only come up recently with COVID over the last few months. If somebody is worried about touching their face because we're told not to touch our face so much, you can either skip those points if you're not comfortable with it, or just make sure to wash your hands well before you do the tapping. Again, that's a matter of how somebody feels about it, but I always like to acknowledge that question because it does matter nowadays. So, but yeah, you can do, 1 finger, 2 fingers, you can do more. You'll see as we get to some of the other points, there we'll actually use more of our fingers because it's easier to do that. So under the nose, the chin point, which is in between the lip and your chin, right there in the middle. Then the collarbone point, I'll try to sit up a little bit more. So the collarbone point, if you find your collarbone, you go down an inch and out an inch. You can tap there with all 5 fingers. You can also do it like a gorilla, like this, which is how I describe it in my kids' book. I have a kids' book for kids where we have animal points. And then there's the under the arm point. This is about the bra line for women, 6 inches under the armpit for men. And you can do, this is the point where it's a little tougher to do both because you kind of have to give yourself a big hug, but you can do one side or the other side. And then there's the top of the head. And here there's a lot of different points. You can move around, or you can stay in one spot, really whatever you want. So those are the different points. Like I said, I've got different names for kids. For the kids' points, we have animal points because it makes it fun for them to learn them. Like we have the hairy eyebrow point, where we like to imagine that we have hairy eyebrows where birds can come and land and sing to make us feel better. And I like to say the animal points because it actually helps adults to learn them as well. So I'll say them quickly. Then there's the side of the eye, which for kids we call the eagle eye point, because it reminds us that if we look at things differently in the way that an eagle does with great vision, we can see things differently in our life. Then we have the under the eye point, which is the lion cry point, which reminds us that even if you're as tough as a lion, it's still okay to cry and allow those emotions to flow. Right? Then we have the under the nose point, which for kids we call the dragon fire point. Here we like to imagine we're breathing out our tough emotions, and we can feel that hot fire on our hand because we're actually blowing on our hand as we do that. Then here for kids, we have the wolf's chin point. So for kids love to do this point because we go, ow, and we pretend we're a wolf howling out the bad emotions. And then there was the gorilla thump point, right? Which is we pretend we're a big, proud gorilla. Then the underarm point, which for kids, we call that the bear hug point because we can give ourselves a big bear hug. And then the top of the head for kids, we call the monkey point. We pretend we're a monkey. We go, ooh, 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 ah. So that's just a fun way to remember the points. And the fun part is that I have lots of adults who go, I didn't really understand the points properly until I read your kid's book because, it gave it a fun way to understand it and look at it. So that's a fun way. So those are all the different points we go through, right? So we start off on the karate chop point. We say the statement of what we're feeling. So it might be, even though I'm feeling all this stress and anxiety, I acknowledge and accept what I'm feeling. We go through that 3 times, and we might get a little more specific. You might say, all this anxiety about what's going on in the world, right? Or all this anxiety about my job. I'm worried I'm going to lose it. So we acknowledge what we're feeling in that moment. And then as we go through the different points, we can use just a simple reminder phrase like all this anxiety, all this anxiety, all this anxiety. We can use a simple reminder phrase, or we can talk through it. And the way I like to think about that is if you've ever had the moment, which we all have, where we're talking to a friend and we're complaining about something in our life, right? Just pretend that you're just talking about it like, I'm so annoyed at my boss. I can't believe the way he's talking to me. It's just so frustrating. It's so annoying. You just kind of talk through it the way you'd be talking to a friend with it. Now, that's if you're doing it on your own. One of the great things about tapping, which is what we do in our Tapping Solution app, and a lot of what we do now, is you can actually be guided in that process, so you don't have to worry about what to say or any of that stuff. You can just, find something for you that resonates with you and follow along with what's going on there. So those are the basic tapping. That's the basic tapping points. We can do the tapping in a minute, but I'd actually love to talk about why it works, if you don't mind me doing that for a minute.
Oh,
right?
No, I would love that. I want people to understand,
right.
like the
Because
science
it is,
it.
Even though I've been doing this for 15 years, I still think it's weird. And there's still moments where I'm like, wow, how does this weird thing work so well? And thankfully, there's science and research now that's showing what it's doing. So I'll mention a couple studies. One of the studies, one of my favorite studies, actually has to do with food cravings, right? So this study actually did brain scans on women who were, while doing the brain scan, they were looking at a food that they were having a craving for. Whoop, I should have turned off those phones before I So as they got into the machine and they did the brain scans, they were looking at a food that they had a craving for. And in the brain scan, you could see how the brain was actually lighting up. You could see the different parts of the brain that was lighting up.
Wow.
And what they did is over the next 8 weeks, they did tapping on those food cravings that they had. And I think they did like once a week tapping for 8 weeks, and people could do tapping in between. Then they came back after the 8 weeks. They went back into the machine. They did the brain scan, again, looking at the food that they had a craving for. And you can see in the brain scans, the brain is no longer lighting up, right? So you went from the brain lighting up, you can see the clear yellow activity for that area of the brain, to no longer lighting up, which basically means that we are reconditioning and rewiring our brain to react differently to that external stimulus, right? So that shows, that's about food cravings, which is super important now, because I know as we've all been home, it's like you just want to go to the fridge and eat because there's all this stress and anxiety and overwhelm. But it also shows how it's actually rewiring the brain and changing it so that you can react differently, so that, when somebody at work who really annoys you all the time and you're constantly triggered by them, you can rewire the brain so that you react differently. So that the next time you're like, whatever, I don't care. They said that, but it's not triggering me. It's not upsetting me. It's letting us show how our brains react differently. So that's one really cool study that I love in terms of how it's doing the brain studies. Another study has to do with cortisol levels in the body. So cortisol, and this actually also has an impact on weight loss and weight gain. Cortisol is known as the stress hormone in the body. So when we are stressed, when we are anxious, cortisol is released into the body. And cortisol has a hugely negative effect on our body in a number of different ways. It's
Yes.
associated with weight gain, particularly around the stomach.
Yes.
And in this study, they split people into 3 different groups. One of the groups, they measured cortisol levels, and one of the groups did nothing. Actually, one of them, that group that did nothing, read magazines, which made it so that at the end, their cortisol levels were actually 2% higher than they were when they started, on average, right? And that shows, that was just magazines. I wonder if they were on social media or on the news, it probably would have been 5 or 10% or something like that. Because I know that's how I feel after I engage too much in news that can be a bit overwhelming at times. So one group did nothing, one group did talk therapy for an hour, and then one group did tapping for an hour. Now,
talk therapy is like, just talking with
talk therapy would be traditional therapy, cognitive therapy, talk therapy, talking about what you're feeling, but nothing that's incorporating the body. That's really one of the powerful things about tapping, is that we don't just think our emotions, we feel them in our body, right?
Exactly.
So when you're feeling anxious or overwhelmed, your breathing is more shallow, you have constriction in your throat, you can feel queasiness in your stomach. We actually feel it in our body. And so tapping is something that actually incorporates the body and helps energy or emotions to move and shift. And so the 3 groups, the group that did talk therapy, I don't have the number right in front of me. It's on our homepage of our site. But the reduction in cortisol levels went down by about 19% during that time. The group that did tapping was more than twice the rate of reduction. So the tapping group was twice as effective as just talk therapy in lowering cortisol levels in the body. And that particular study has been replicated numerous times. What's really interesting to me is that the first time they did the study, it was done by Dr. Dawson Church, and I remember actually emailing with him and my brother, and he was frustrated because he kept waiting for the results to come back. And he was like, why are the lab people not getting it back to us? And finally they got back to him and they said, well, we kept redoing it, recalibrating the equipment because we thought it can't be right. Because the results were so good that they thought, oh, we must have messed up the study or messed up the measurements. And so they did it again. And finally, after doing it a few times, they said, no, I guess this is just right. It's actually having that big of an impact. And it's since been replicated by other people. And again, similar results that are really amazing. So it shows again that when we change our emotions, when we use tapping, we can actually change the hormones in our body, the chemicals that are being released in our body. Right. So those are 2 really powerful studies. And just to give a sense of what the tapping is doing, anytime we are triggered by an emotion like fear, overwhelm, anxiety, somebody's asking, where can we read that study there? You can read it on our website. Our website links to a whole bunch of different stuff at thetappingsolution.com. There's a whole bunch of different studies on our page. So what happens is when we are stressed, when we are overwhelmed, the amygdala in our brain, which is an ancient part of our brain, gets triggered. And what happens with that is that the immune system is weakened, the endocrine system, the digestive system, the reproductive system, all these things go down when our amygdala is triggered. And our prefrontal cortex, which is our modern thinking. This is like, when we think about making a decision and we think about, well, if I make this decision, what future impact is it going to make? Is this person going to be happy? Am I going to get the result that I want? That's all being done in our prefrontal cortex. But when that amygdala is firing, it actually brings the prefrontal cortex offline and it sends all these chemicals through the body. We're essentially just going to survival mode. This is why the example I like to give is if you've ever had the experience of being really stressed and overwhelmed, and all of a sudden you go in your kitchen, you eat a whole bunch of junk food, and then you're like, then you all of a sudden you calm down because food works to calm us down. It's not an effective way to calm ourselves down, but it works. All of a sudden you're like, oh, why did I do that? Right? We beat ourselves up and go, why did I do that? Oh, I made such a poor decision. I'm so bad. I can't control myself. We really beat ourselves up about things like that and think, I don't have self-control. But what was really happening was that part of our brain that makes those decisions goes offline. And so we're not actually accessing our full self and being our full selves. And that's really what's happening there. So when we do the tapping, we're actually calming that amygdala in the brain. We're letting ourselves know that we're safe and that we can relax. And it changes. It brings us from a sympathetic nervous system response, which is the stress response, to the parasympathetic nervous system response, which is the relaxation response. So the immune system gets stronger. All these systems come back online. We're able to think more clearly and really just react and be our full self. full self, be the full expression of ourselves, as I like to say. So,
Right.
Yeah, that's how that. Do you have any questions about that? I know I just threw out a whole bunch of science and.
Oh no, it's so great, and I love it. And you know, I nerd out on all this stuff, and I love it. And I love it because, you know, I've been talking to my community a lot about, you know, what I do with culinary alchemy, and that's very much, you know, that integrated. It's an integrated method of addressing what's going on in your physical body, as well as what's going on in your emotional, your mental, and also your energetic body. So, you know, I love that you used food as an example, because food is love, and it can be very healing, especially if you're choosing the right foods, you know, foods that are nourishing for your body. But quite often when we are stressed out, we're reaching just for comfort foods, and usually those comfort foods are not, you know, good for us. And so this is just such a it's just such a powerful addition to, you know, for the people that have already been doing what I've been teaching them with the choices of food and different types of mindfulness techniques. Like, this is something that they can just seamlessly add in to their day, you know, and to their lifestyle. And especially if they are in this fight and flight, you know, mode, and they walk into the kitchen, and even if they don't even have to worry about, okay, what am I going to eat? It's just like, let me just tap this out, you know, let me just tap this out and get back into a place of calm and acceptance of my feelings, and then maybe make a good food choice, right? Yeah. So, you know, this is, go ahead.
And there are so many emotions tied to food. Yes. There are experiences tied to food. Yes. There's so much that goes into it, in that, you know, think about experiences. If you were rewarded with food growing up, and food meant love from your mother or father, then you tie love to food. Or if you always went to food because you were stressed out and anxious because you had a lot of trauma, then food got connected to that. So anytime you're stressed and overwhelmed, you go to food now. And so, you know, I know my sister, I should have, you know, thinking about it, my sister should have come on and talked. She actually has a book on weight loss and body confidence, which is something that we really believe in. Is that, you know, I know if I had the choice of helping a woman to, and I say women specifically because they struggle with this a lot more. They have way more pressure on how they look than men do. And if I had the opportunity to help a woman to feel more confident or to lose weight, I'd choose confident all day long. Because you can lose 10 pounds and still be unhappy with your body, or you can just learn to love your body and accept your body as it is. And the interesting thing is that actually allows you to lose weight quicker because you're no longer so stressed out about food. Your body responds differently. So you go into a system where your digestive system works properly. So you're not only do you eat, if you eat the junk food when you're stressed, not only is it junk food, but your body can't process it well. Exactly. If you're eating the junk food when you're relaxed, still not good, but your body will process it better because your digestive system is working better. So there's so much tied into food that it is so important to address the emotional aspects of it, and to always be conscious of the emotions we're bringing when we literally sit in front of food with our plate. Go, okay, what am I actually feeling in this moment? And am I being conscious about what I'm feeling? And if I'm feeling stressed and anxious, okay, maybe I need to push the plate away, do tapping for a minute, because if you don't, not only are you going to make poor food choices about what you put on your plate, you're going to eat too much, because you're going to keep eating until you're just all of a sudden stuffed, and you're kind of trying to stuff down those emotions that you don't want to feel in the first place that you're dealing with in that moment.
Yes, no, exactly. And I so love that you brought up all those points. I talk about them often, and, you know, until now, you know, I'm usually referencing just sort of like, you know, grounding into the moment, maybe taking a few minutes either to like meditate or say an affirmation or a mantra. But this is something that, and sometimes people need a physiological activity to do to connect to that, because, you know, that physiology helps us reset our brain, right? So I love everything that you're saying. It's so complimentary, and something that, again, is so accessible. Accessible for people
and you know, I like you mentioned, again, I'm a big fan of meditation and mantras and all those things. And one differentiator that I like about tapping, a lot of people use tapping before they meditate, is that when you're in a very high stress or anxiety level or anger at, let's say, a level 8 or 9 or 10 out of 10, it's not easy to go into meditation in those moments, right? Like, if you're really angry at somebody because you just got in a fight and somebody goes, why don't you go meditate? You'd be like, what do you mean? They're like, I'm angry. let me feel angry in this moment. I just want to feel angry. Whereas with the tapping is helpful in those moments because you're actually allowed to express it. You're not trying to go, okay, let me meditate and connect with really powerful and deep parts of myself. You're going, no, I'm angry. I'm so angry. I'm, how could they say that to me? So you do that, and as you're doing it, the tapping is actually calming the brain and allowing you to come down from that emotion faster, so that you can then go into meditation or eating well or whatever it might be. So I think it's a really powerful practice to add on to those different things that you can do as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I'm so grateful that you came on today, because it's so needed. I mean, it's always been, I know the resource has been there for a while, and it's something that we can have always used, but especially right now, in this time frame, it's such a powerful, powerful practice. You guys, for some, I think most of you kind of stayed on, maybe a few have like jumped off and on. But I also wanted to just let you guys know that Alex, you might have heard him mention he's also an author. He wrote this children's book. But another super amazing thing is they started these different online programs with the tapping solution, and it was definitely the first of its kind. They had like a summit, and is that your phone?
Okay.
But his foundation, the Tapping Solution Foundation, actually helps trauma survivors in Rwanda, right? Is it now global, or is it?
Our foundation has done work, really, number one on trauma originally, because I live in Newtown, Connecticut, where we had the San Diego school shooting, and so when that happened here, we'd already been doing trauma work for quite some time, but we really delved deeper into the work, specifically with schools. We'd already been doing work with veterans, because tapping is really powerful with PTSD. It's one of the things that for me is such a clear sign of how effective tapping is. Absolutely. And that it's used with veterans from Vietnam to Iraq to Afghanistan to so many different places. And we've done tapping with places like Rwanda, with genocide survivors in Rwanda, different places like when we had the tsunami in Asia, so many different things around the world where there has been trauma, where tapping is needed to really balance our nervous system, to regulate our nervous system. And so that was the first part of our foundation. And then the second part, which we added a few years later, was the work that we're doing in schools with my kids' book and with and our parents and children's book, where we're bringing tapping into schools, because kids are under such tremendous pressure nowadays in the school environment, not just because of extra demands about learning, but also in terms of the social anxiety that there is, and just with a heightened, social media. I mean, I remember feeling left out when I was in high school at times, and I can't imagine having to go on Facebook or Instagram and see people, leaving me out, or see all the pressure that comes with social media. So it's really, I love the work that we're doing with kids as well, with tapping, to help them to be able to process their emotions and to be able to utilize their brain better. Because as I said, when you're in that stress or anxiety state, you don't test well, you don't do well in school, you can't speak in front of a classroom. And when you can use the tapping, it allows you to feel calm and safe to do those things.
Yes, no, 100%. And your words echo mine. The type of things I talk about daily. You can't make focused, conscious, good decisions when you're in a place of fear or in a place of inflammation. So, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing.
Of course. So I want to make sure we do some tapping in a minute too, so so people can experience it. So.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that, and then we'll have some questions. People have some great questions specific to COVID. They want to know about your programs. So, before we still have quite a bit of time, actually. So,
okay, good. I wasn't sure how long we were going, so.
Oh, yeah. We'll go the full hour. We'll go as long as you guys hang with us. You guys are still hanging with us now. So, let's go into a technique that you can share with everyone.
Great. So let's do that. So let's first start off. I know we're all feeling so much stress and anxiety right now. I mean, we had COVID to begin with this year, and over the last week, there has been so much pain, so much hurt, so many different emotions going on with what happened with George Floyd, with all of the racial tension and anxiety, and really the what I would call a beautiful awakening, I think, of a lot of America and the world to what has been a really big injustice that we have not taken more action on, and that we need to take more action on. But it's been overwhelming in so many different ways. But I like to look at it as a beautiful awakening to a hopefully better world. I hope we take action to make things better and make things stronger. And so, but what I want to do right now is actually do some tapping, because as much as we always want to be engaged, it can also be overwhelming. Yeah. And just as important, I was doing a masterclass before we got on with our membership, and talking about how it's okay to disconnect from the news or social media at times. It doesn't mean you don't care. I think sometimes people care so much they feel like they have to get every bit of information, otherwise they're not engaging. And what people don't recognize as well is how that affects our nervous system, that we get so overwhelmed. So it is important for us to step back sometimes and do something like tapping and acknowledge what we're feeling, and then re-engage with more energy to be able to make the decisions we want to and take action from a place of love and hope, and not out of a place of fear and overwhelm and stress and anxiety and uncertainty. So really important, the place we come from with those decisions. And so let's go ahead, let's just kind of connect with what we're feeling in our body right now. Go ahead and take a deep breath in and just notice what you're feeling right now. I mean, so often we don't take that moment to pause, to go, wow, there's just so much going on. I'm so overwhelmed. And so just connect with what that is for you. What are you feeling? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it hurt? Is it fear? Is it uncertainty? You know, not only about this week, but maybe you've got a lot of uncertainty about your finances or your health or whatever else it might be for you. So just connect with that and notice what you're feeling in your body. And what we want to do is we want to calibrate on a level of 0 to 10. So first off, pick whatever. We're going to tap on general stress and anxiety, but just notice what it is for you. And then calibrate on a level of 0 to 10, where 10 is I'm super anxious, super overwhelmed and stressed. And 0 is like, no, nothing, feel good, no big deal, right? But of course, if I don't think any of us are in that place right now. We are at times, and it's you want to go through the pendulum of emotion. You want to be able to rebalance whenever you can. So just notice what you're feeling, and then also notice what you're feeling in your body, because as I said before, we don't just think our emotions, we feel them in our body, and they affect our breathing. So just notice if you try to take a deep breath in and breathe out, are you able to breathe out fully, or is there any shakiness? I notice that when I'm feeling anxiety, that when I breathe out, there's a little bit of a jaggedness to it at times. So just notice your breathing, notice what you're feeling in your stomach and your throat and your back. Just recognize what you're feeling in your body. And we'll take one more deep breath in, and then go ahead and deep breathe out. And we'll start tapping on the side of the hand. And what we'll do here with the tapping is I'm going to say something, you can repeat it, and anybody watching and listening will repeat with you. They'll say it at the same time as you. So on the side of the hand, even though I'm feeling all this stress and anxiety, I acknowledge and accept what I'm feeling right now. Even though all this stress and anxiety is overwhelming. Because there's so much going on in the world. And I just don't know what to do. I acknowledge and accept what I'm feeling in this moment. Even though I'm so overwhelmed. And I feel so much uncertainty in my life. I choose to pause and breathe in this moment. And we'll go to the eyebrow point. All this stress and anxiety. Side of the eye, it feels so overwhelming. Under the eye, everything going on in the world is so overwhelming. Under the nose, all of this COVID stuff that's been going on for months. Chin point, having to quarantine and separate. Collarbone point, not knowing what's going on with the economy. Under the arm, and all the racial tension over the last week. Top of the head, it all feels so overwhelming.
It all feels so overwhelming.
Eyebrow point, but I acknowledge what I'm feeling right now.
But I acknowledge what I'm feeling right now.
Side of the eye, and I want to give my brain and body.
And I want to give my brain and body.
Under the eye, a moment to pause.
A moment to pause.
Under the nose, I want to relax my brain and body.
I want to relax my brain and body.
Chin point, to allow more clarity in my life.
To allow more clarity in my life.
Collarbone point, so I can make decisions from a place of love.
So I can make decisions from a place of love.
Under the arm, and not a place of fear.
And not a place of fear.
Top of the head, I acknowledge what I'm feeling in this moment.
I acknowledge what I'm feeling in this moment.
Eyebrow point, and I choose to breathe in this moment.
And I choose to breathe in this moment.
Side of the eye, to boost my immune system.
To boost my immune system.
Under the eye, to bring my brain back online.
To bring my brain back online.
Under the nose, and to feel safe in this moment.
And to feel safe in this moment.
Chin point, I choose to bring safety to this moment.
I choose to bring safety to this moment.
Collarbone point, to move forward one step at a time.
To move forward one step at a time.
Under the arm, knowing that all will be well.
Knowing that all will be well.
Top of the head, that I am safe.
That I am safe.
And then staying here one more time, and that I am loved.
And that I am loved.
And let's stop there and take a deep breath in. And breathe out. Just allow yourself to feel in the moment. And just notice what you feel in your body. Move it a little bit more. Take a deep breath in and notice, did your breathing change at all? Are you able to breathe maybe a little bit deeper? If you were feeling any pain in your body, did it shift at all? Just notice what you're feeling in your body. And we want to go ahead and check in again with what we were feeling. If we were feeling stressed or anxious at a level 8 or 9, how has that shifted? Is it gone down to a 7 or a 6? Or maybe it jumped all the way down to a 2? Notice what shifted for you. And maybe it actually, maybe it went up by 1 because you realize, oh, you know what? Something else I noticed is really what I need to tap on. I noticed as I was doing the tapping that something else was triggering me, and that's what I need to tap on. So there's no wrong or right answer. Most of the time, 95+% of the time, we go down in what we're feeling, but sometimes we go up, and that just gives us feedback into what was really going on. And maybe I wasn't tapping on the right thing, and now I've got clarity. Now I need to tap on this next thing. And so just notice what you feel. So what did you feel as we were doing that tapping, and what did you feel afterwards?
Oh, for me, I literally started to feel, and I felt like I was relatively calm, but there's always a lot of different things going on, and I've got playback in my ear, so I'm acutely aware of that. But it just, as we moved down through the points and then repeating back up, I just felt like a sense of calm come over me. Even though I wasn't aware of my breathing maybe not being as calm as I thought it was, after we did it, I was very aware of how it had slowed down. My breaths, were deeper, and fuller, and it's just, I'm tingly, like I feel tingly.
That a lot of people express that they feel in their body. They feel a sense of calmness. And one of the really interesting things is, I think that most people, I like to think about, when you're measuring from 0 to 10, that a 9 or a 10 might be, a panic attack or an anxiety attack. And people think, well, no, I'm not having that. I'm okay. I can deal with the stress. I can deal with the anxiety. But they don't realize or feel the difference between living life at a 6 or a 7 and even shifting that a little bit to living life at a 4 or a 3. And that little shift is life changing in how your body functions and in all your immune system, digestive system, all that stuff, and in how your brain functions. Because, for people who want to either they've lost a job and need to transition, or they want to move up the corporate ladder, or they want to grow their business and be more successful, we need to have our brains operating at our full capacity. And when we think we can operate well, we're like, oh no, I'm fine. And we're living at a 6. And then all of a sudden we shift to living at a 4. We're like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that it was living at a 6. I didn't realize the stress that I had. And I like to compare it to, if you've gone on a vacation
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that you as an entrepreneur know the feeling of, having to process so much stuff all the time. And
Yeah.
you go on vacation, and that first day, you almost don't know what to do with yourself. And then you get into day 2 and day 3, and you're like, wow, I didn't realize the stress I was living with every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And we do that when we go on vacation. But what if we could shift to living on that place on a more consistent basis?
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean we're going to get rid of stress, because it's going to be there. We live in a really stressful, overwhelming time with so much more information that we're used to. But this is why it's so important to create a habit of pausing and recalibrating and rebalancing the nervous system, right?
Yes.
There's a really great line that I heard that I love about tapping. That was actually from my friend Dr. Mark Hyman. We had interviewed him years ago for our Tapping World Summit, which we do every year. And he said there's 3 things that are critical for good health. It's what you eat. It's what you put in your body, eating good, healthy, nutritious food. Yeah. It's how you move your body. Yeah. And it's resetting the nervous system. Yeah. You have to reset the nervous system, because if you don't reset the nervous system, you'll make poor decisions about your food. You'll be stressed when you're trying to digest. You won't sleep well, which will affect your health in many ways. And you're not going to be motivated to exercise. We've all had it happen that we're like, why did I go weeks or months without exercising? Well, it was because of something happening in your life that you weren't processing or acknowledging and letting go. So without that third piece of resetting the nervous system, you can go through a pattern of trying and failing with diet after diet, or wanting to eat better, but not being able to get yourself to do it because you're not resetting the nervous system, and you're struggling with underlying emotional issues that is just a part of life. Yeah.
No, this is just, I have different questions coming in. I don't want to touch my phone, you guys. So if you sent me questions to that little question mark, send it to my DM and we can try checking it there, or text me. We have a bunch that came in. Do you have online programs? Yes, he absolutely does. Yes. And let's talk about the app and what's in the app and how people can easily download what they need to do to get to it.
Yeah, the number one thing I would recommend, we have 10 different books. We have several New York Times bestsellers. We have online programs on weight loss and body confidence and financial success and anxiety, all sorts of things. But the easiest thing to do is to literally just open up your phone, go to the App Store or Google Play, and download our Tapping Solution app. You just look up the Tapping Solution, you download it. There's a ton of free content in there. There's a whole section in there right now on coronavirus stress and anxiety, where we added a whole bunch of different things in there when all this was happening to help people with what they were experiencing and feeling right now. And the way it is, so the app is actually a combination of tapping and meditation. So it combines the two. And if you've ever heard of the apps Calm or Headspace, Calm being the biggest one, you see them in airports all the time. It's the same type of app where you can literally go in, you find a challenge that you're dealing with, you press play, and you listen, and you follow the screen and tap along and say what you say, just as we were doing here right now. So you don't have to think about it. You can just follow along with it and get amazing results with it. And one of the things I really love about the app, more so than all the other stuff that we have, is the information we've been able to get from it. Because just like we did here, at the beginning of every tapping meditation, you calibrate. So a little thing comes up and you go, oh, I'm in level 8 on stress. And then at the end of the tapping meditation, it comes up again, and you might say, oh, I've moved, I'm now at 4 or 3. And what's amazing is to see the data to go, well, for example, our most listened to tapping meditation is on anxiety. And after around 300,000 plays, I don't know what the exact number is right now, it has a 41% reduction in anxiety in 9 minutes. Wow. So that's really powerful to be able to go, really I'm feeling stressed, I'm feeling anxious. Let me take 9 minutes for this tapping meditation and feel 41% better on average, right? That's really powerful. And that is on all of them, one after the other. And somebody said, is the app free? Yes, the app is absolutely free to download. There is, just like Calm, there is a free, and then there's a paid one for more stuff to unlock. But I'll tell you that we have more free stuff than any apps you'll find out there, especially right now with coronavirus, because we really do care deeply. And I know you said that like our foundation work, the work that we do, we care really deeply. And, sometimes I think, well, the things we sell are so that we can do what we do, so we can pay for our team members and our employees, because our mission has always been to make tapping accessible to every man, woman, and child on the planet, so they can have this tool to balance themselves, to feel better in any given moment at all times. So I highly recommend checking out the app. It is free to download and free to use most of the stuff in the app.
Yes, no, and you answered actually several of the questions. You know, is there tapping for fear of COVID? You've answered that. They have those resources, you guys. Just download the app. Tapping to help for money, for self-respect, for self-love. I mean, these are several of the questions, and you guys just download the app. Everything is there. And
you'll see so many different topics on it. So it's not only about, we can use tapping to not only release emotions that we're feeling, like stress, anxiety, overwhelm, sadness, grief, all those emotions that we feel, but also to create more confidence and boost our happiness, and really to choose what we want to feel, right? So I recommend, I tap twice a day. I always tap in the morning. I always tap in the evening. I tap in the morning to see, well, what am I feeling? And I tap on what I'm feeling that I don't want to be feeling. And then I also choose what emotion I want to be feeling. So if in a given day I want to bring energy and focus into my day, I do that. And then at the end of the day, I also tap before going to bed, because we have so many challenges with insomnia right now, because there's so much stress and overwhelm, that people get to bed and they can't stop their brain from racing. And they can't calm themselves down because they're so stressed and so overwhelmed. And so being able to tap before we go to bed allows us to sleep better. And so there is a huge category in the app on sleep. And I've heard so many stories of people that woke up at 3 a.m, with a panic attack. They tapped, all of a sudden they felt calmer. They will be able to get to bed in 15 minutes, where it normally would have taken them hours to get back to bed.
Wow,
and
that's
so
amazing.
I always tap morning and evening. I actually have a planner that I use that we're releasing in about 4 months. It's in production right now, that guides you in that process right now. But get the app. It's the best and easiest resource to try tapping.
That's awesome. And we're going to have to do this again when you're going to release those planners, so that we can just, remind everybody that if they already have this, they need this also.
Yeah.
That answered another set of questions, because it was about sleep and, how to calm anxiety before sleep for better quality sleep. So thank you. Someone said, does tapping have to be in that specific order of points? Which I thought was a great question.
No, it doesn't. So the reason why we do it in that order, so when tapping was first discovered in around 1979 by a psychologist called Dr. Roger Callahan, he was working with a woman with water phobia. And he'd been struggling with her for years, talk therapy, different techniques, just could not, she literally didn't like to shower because she was so fearful of water for some reason. Wow. He could not help her. And the night before he was going to do one of his sessions with her, he was reading about acupuncture, and he noticed that, or he read that the under the point eye was associated with the stomach. And when he was working with her, he asked her, well, what are you feeling? And she said her stomach was really upset. So he said, oh, let's just tap here. So he was tapping here, and with literally 10 to 15 minutes of tapping, all of a sudden her water phobia was gone. And he said, oh, there's something to this, right? And that's where it kind of started. But what Roger developed was something called TFT. With TFT, it was which was thought field therapy. It's kind of like acupuncture. You don't do acupuncture on yourself because you don't know what to do. There's all these different points, right? And so with thought field therapy, well, you have this issue, do this, this, and this. You have this issue, do this, this, and this. And so in the 80s, another man called Gary Craig decided to make a more basic algorithm that you could use on all things that hit on the major energy meridians of the body. And that's what these tapping points are. Now, it's not always easy. If you're in public, you don't want to sit here doing this, all that kind of stuff. So you can just pick a point. You can be doing your chest point like this, or if you're at a table, you can be tapping on the karate chop point underneath it. Sometimes people find that there's one particular point that they like more. So you can just do a few points and not do other points. But the point of doing all the points is that they're the major meridians, so it can help. It's more effective than not doing it, than not doing all the different points.
Right. I thank you for that. I like that distinction, and you can do just the one, but this is why it's better to do all of them in that order. Okay. So this question is, do I have to say things out loud? So I guess, let's say if someone is around other people, maybe family who doesn't get it.
It's a really great question. So two things. number one, I do think there is power always in vocalizing something.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Even if you're not tapping, the vocalization of saying, "I'm really scared right now," or "I'm really feeling lonely." There's a power in that versus just internalizing it. Now, with that said, if you are around other people or you just don't feel comfortable saying it or even acknowledging it to yourself out loud what you're feeling, saying it internally is just as powerful, I believe, because the point of doing the setup statement and going through that process is to connect with what we're feeling, so that as we're feeling that and our amygdala has been triggered and our brain connections are going on that, we can tap, let our brain know that we're safe and our body that we're safe, and then release it. So it is, if you say it internally, you're still focusing on it, right? So it does still work. So no, you don't need to say it out loud. With that said, I do think there is power in saying things out loud at the same time.
Right.
But you
and
don't
I
need
agree with you. Yeah. And it's also just about honoring, opening up that that throat chakra. And, we've also talked about the profound power of sound itself, so to hear, to give power back to your own sound and your own voice by acknowledging, I think is important. So, so maybe, baby steps, if you got to do it in your head the first few times, your goal is to say it out loud.
I would probably say that most of the time when people tap, they are saying it in their head. Like if people are following along with the app, they're just saying it in their head. But if you have the space to do it and say it out loud, sometimes I think there's power there. I think there's power there.
Okay, great. Well, there's a couple more questions if you're game to stay on.
I'm not in a rush. I love answering questions. So.
Oh, awesome. You guys, I have no idea if Instagram is going to kick us off or not, but I just want to say thank you. We're going to go into the last couple questions, but in case you get kicked off, thank you so much for joining us. You guys have been awesome. You've kind of just hung out with us almost the entire time. You can find Alex at Alex Ortner .ts on his Instagram, and the tapping solution also on Instagram, and download his app on Google Play, right? And
Google Play or the App Store,
Yeah, and you will find everything in all his books and just amazing programs all across the board. Is that your website, right?
Yep, at thetappingsolution.com.
Okay, perfect. So write all that stuff down. We have a couple more questions we'll go through. Hopefully you guys will be able to hear it. One of the questions, and thank you so much, Alex, just for doing all
Thank
this.
you for having me here. It's been an honor and a privilege and so much fun.
So fun. Okay, so a couple more questions. What advice would you give someone who wants to try tapping but doesn't know where to start? So even given your basic steps, is there like a program that's like your beginner program?
So that's again why I would recommend the app. I mean, we've always been trying to make it easier and easier for people to use it. And when you download the app, there's an initial process that will show you a video with the points. It'll educate you a little more. There's like an onboarding process to know how to use the app. And then once you're in the app, it's literally like you find a topic, you press play, and you'll see on the screen there's an avatar there. You can choose your avatar. You can have a man, a woman. You can have a child because there's tapping for children in there. And as you do the tapping, it'll show on the app which points on the body to tap on. And you just as we did, you just tap along and you repeat. So it's as simple as that. Yeah,
I think even for myself, I've been doing tapping, a few minutes before, but it's sometimes hard to remember, right? And unless you're actively doing it throughout the day. And clearly I haven't, but like using your app now will really help me because I'll have the visual. For me, I'm very visual. So having that tell me where to tap, what to do is helpful.
The other power in that is that oftentimes we need somebody to hold up a mirror to the things going on in our life where we can't see what our blocks are. So when we follow along with a tapping sequence where somebody else is guiding us on what are typically the issues around a particular challenge, it allows us to see things that we can't always see ourselves. So we can be tapping on our own and just not realize the things we should say or focus on because we're stuck in the problem. We're stuck in our worldview and what we're seeing. And so even when we can tap on our own, there is power in having somebody guide us to have different language and see things in a different way.
Yeah, no, it's so true. And that's why having, coaches and guides and mentors and just your community, is so helpful. It just gives you different sets of eyes and different perspectives. So it's a great point. Someone also said, can we add breath work to boost the tapping? So I
Yeah,
don't know.
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
as somebody who's a fan of all sorts of different modalities, I
Mm-hmm.
would never say like only do tapping and don't do
Yeah.
this or that. Like I believe in any work that is helping us to be healthier, to be stronger, to heal the planet, all these things, I wholeheartedly recommend. And yes, and there are actually tapping meditations that include breath work in our app,
Okay.
that
Great.
actually do that kind of stuff. But yeah, whatever. One of the great things about tapping is you can't really get it wrong. It's not like when you take too many pills of some type of drug, well, you're gonna have a side effect
Yeah.
that you don't want to have. Or if you take something that you should, you can still have a side effect. I'm not saying to not take drugs. I'm not a doctor, but
Mm-hmm.
with tapping, you're not going to get it wrong. You're not going to say the wrong thing. You're not going to mess it up in some way. So yeah, you can try it and experiment with it and see what resonates with you. But yeah, breath work is a great thing to incorporate with tapping.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. And I would agree with that. Just like adding it all in, all these, holistic modalities. And,
Yeah,
you guys, I talk so much about your immune system and supporting
yep,
and boosting it. This is something that you can do. I mean, everything about tapping is to strengthen your body and your immune
yeah,
system and to balance and release stress. And to, balance your hormones, you've got just everything. So this is another tool in your immunity toolkit,
right.
that you can add. So, do we have any more questions?
I
Is
would
that
mention
about
so
it?
one thing I'll add to that is that
Yeah.
one of the things to practice, whether you're doing tapping or anything else, is just the practice of stopping to acknowledge what you're feeling, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just getting lost in the day. This is why I do tapping in the morning, because I don't want my emotions to just run over me throughout the day. If I start off the day, I mean, I've got 3 kids, 7, 9, 11-year-olds, and I don't want them to, mornings can be stressful and
Mm-hmm.
all the craziness of that. I don't want to take that into my day and be
Mm-hmm.
overwhelmed. I want to be conscious of what I'm bringing into my day. So
Right.
having a practice of just starting to notice when you're upset or feeling something you don't want to feel, to recognize that our emotions are literally the fuel of our life. And if
Mm-hmm.
you're running on poor emotions, on poor fuel, you will
Mm-hmm.
not be able to bring your life in the direction that you want to have. So
Mm-hmm.
incorporating that practice of just going, I'm not feeling the way I want to, what can I do differently, rather than letting your emotions just run your life?
Yes, so powerful and so true, and really so easy to integrate into your day-to-day life. Like,
Yeah,
not a hard thing to do. So,
yeah,
no, that was just awesome. Like, I mean, I'm so grateful to you, Alex. I personally learned so much, and
that's awesome.
I felt pretty good, but you brought me down. I feel like I'm at a 2 right now.
I know. Yeah, the tapping's
So
great. Sometimes it's a challenge. People will start yawning, or when I'm doing tapping on a live or a podcast or something,
uh,
it can calm me down. It can literally soothes you and
yeah,
makes you feel better. And yeah, it's a great practice to have in your daily life. So thank you
yeah,
so much for
no.
having me here.